Hey everybody, this is Joe. Thank you for watching my Giga Texas construction update video. For today, I thought I would talk a little bit about drones. Specifically, you may have noticed that I got a new drone recently, and you may wonder why. There's a couple of reasons, and I don't want to turn you into drone experts, but I thought I would give you some background information so you understand why I purchased the drone and what it means for my flying here at Giga Texas. My decision to upgrade my drones has nothing to do with their current capabilities or if anything wrong with them. It actually is driven by a new FAA requirement called Remote ID, which takes into effect on the 16th of September here in the United States. And it governs operations by Part 107 certified drone pilots, of which I am here in the United States. Now, Remote ID is essentially a digital license plate for drones, and it allows the drones to broadcast their ID number, location, altitude, velocity, flight time, and control station or takeoff locations. And this is receivable by people that have apps on their phones, and it's a way of ensuring safety of airspace. Now the question is do I have to comply with this remote ID and fly over Giga Texas? And the answer is yes, I do, primarily because of the new rule, but also because I make the videos and I put them on YouTube and on X and other social media sites, and I earn income. And to do that, I need to comply not only as a 107 pilot, but also with this new remote ID capability that the FAA is now levying on drone pilots. Now, sadly, despite over 3 years of flying, 567 hours and 6,129 miles over Giga Texas, my current drones just don't meet this requirement. I'm looking into the possibility of getting an add-on module that will transmit remote ID, and I can add it to the exterior of my drones. But for right now, I haven't got that, and I decided because of the looming deadline, I needed to make a change now. My new drone is a DJI Air 3, which is a brand new drone and meets the remote ID requirements. I am not in any way sponsored by DJI. I'm just familiar with the family of drones, and I thought I would stick with what I know to keep the transition very simple. The drone does have some very interesting capabilities that you've already started to notice in my videos. The biggest ones has to do with the lenses. There's two different lenses on this system. One of them is a E24 wide angle that can do 1 to 3x zoom. The other, which is really impressive, is the E70 3x medium telephoto lens, and it is natively at 3x, and it can go all the way up to 9x for the zoom. There's a lot of other interesting capabilities that are very helpful for Giga Texas, as you can see by this list. The biggest of which is the wind resistance is really outstanding for this drone, and that will be playing a big role later on this year as the weather continues to deteriorate. Now, switching gears, I just want to briefly let you know about the airspace around Giga Texas that you may not be aware of that governs the operation of drones. And that has to do with the international airport. It's less than 5 miles away. We are under the what's called Class C airspace. You can see a diagram here with that kind of upside down wedding cake, and also with the inset map on the left where Giga Texas is located in relation to the international airport and that airspace. And this requires FAA clearance to fly through this airspace each and every flight. In order to get the clearance from the FAA to fly in this airspace, I use an app called Aloft. It's part of the low altitude authorization and notification capability, and it approves a minimum of 72 hours before flight the drone operations in a selected area. Now, I usually request a monthly batch approval a month ahead with all of the dates, times, altitudes, and geolocations that I will be flying. And this is required for Part 107 drone operations over Giga Texas. Then that leads to, I need to go to the DJI site and get unlock application certificates that are then downloaded into the drone at the day of flight. And I need to do both of these ahead of time for each and every flight. So there you have it. I don't want to turn you into a drone operator, but I just want to give you the background information of why I purchased a new drone and what this remote ID is and how it operates. And also maybe a little bit of information about the airspace in and around Giga Texas where drone operations take place and the steps necessary to allow you to legally fly here. And I hope that you found this information helpful and put into context a little bit more about what you see with the various videos and the steps that drone operators have to go through to ensure that we can do these videos for you. My drones are ready and raring to go. Let's go flying over Giga Texas. Well, good morning from Giga Texas. We're on the far southwest, and I wanted to show you there's a new clearing being prepared. It also is starting to remove some of the last remaining hills and ponds in this area. This gives you a really good idea of how this is looking right now, and it looks like maybe this entire section is going to be transformed, and maybe they'll use this for more parking, more material staging, or perhaps we'll see a new structure built here. But as I pan back and give you this overall view, this gives you a really good idea of where exactly this is located. In the middle of the screen is that triangular contractor vehicle parking, and then you can also see that large material staging yard on the left and a water detention pond next to this new road. As we fly over the trailers of the West Warehouse on Wheels, I'll bring the drone down lower and show you some of the activity here with this kind of fill dirt, or maybe it might be some gravel mix. You can also see some of the concrete pipes on the left and in that trench next to the road where it's being installed for water management. And here's another section of this concrete pipe and where it's being installed just to the left of that, hopefully that gives you a pretty good idea of what construction is going on here in relation to the road. We also see another section here having the grade prepared. Looks like there is an elevation change, so they may be filling this whole area in to get this level. The foundation, the footings, the trenching, the plumbing for the new end-of-line facility is really coming along quickly. And as I bring the drone down lower, I'll give you a good view of the activity that is going on today. I'll zoom in and we'll get a good view of some of the work in this trench area. Many of the footings have already had the concrete and the forms for the column bases poured, and you can see that throughout the right and center of the screen. And then here we see quite a bit more plumbing being done and more of this trenching as well. I don't know, there's a lot of speculation of why all of this plumbing is in this particular location, but needless to say, they're going to be needing a lot of that for some of the work that they do with preparing the vehicles, also for just the number of employees that are going to be working in this section. And another concrete truck with workers doing work on more of the footings. And in the background on the upper right is the steel items that have been brought in from the north staging to this location. And that's most likely going to be the steel that makes the vertical assembly of this particular building. And here's a good overall view of the site, how it looks today, and where it's located in relation to the rest of the areas that we talked about earlier in the video. So let's get ready to cross over the highway, and we'll resume the flight on this side next to the building. I'm approaching these tents. This is again where the end of line has been located. It's a temporary location. I don't see very many vehicles coming out here right now, but I do see some activity next to this ramp where the cars have been driving through. I'll go ahead and zoom in and take a look. It looks like it may be, I don't know if this is insulation or some other building materials that are being used for the work that is going on inside this section. So pretty interesting. And I'm also going to give you a good close-in view of the west main entrance. The stainless steel cladding continues to be added. It looks like all of the horizontal beams now have almost all of the cladding with the exception of the edges and some of the columns as well. And this work is continuing. It looks like on the trailer on the ground there's some more of the smaller pieces which may be for the corner units. The materials that have been stored here, a lot of them have been moved inside for part of that general assembly. Lines 2 and 3 assembly and construction that is going on inside. And I'll look for a way to get across here with not going over the vehicles, to show you that there's some new materials that have been stored here, including these very large red and gray items. And these look like they form platforms for some of the production lines that are going on inside. Plus we see some other green and silver wrapped items on the right hand side of the screen. More deliveries here today for the third floor temporary loading platform. We also see at the bottom of the screen these racks that looks like that is rack mounts that have cables that are mounted on the roof to keep those out of the way and also organized. We also see these accordion trucks bringing in more equipment, and then on the ground next to this well we can tell that more of these kind of racks have got windows in it, and if we look at the building we can see why, as they are now removing the rest of the windows on this corner of the building. And as I zoom in, this gives you a pretty good idea of what all activity looks like on the ground, second and third floors here, and just how this section is being prepared for wall panels to be removed, and it extends all the way across this part of the building as well. And again, a good close-in view of some of the activity inside. So just a few more windows looks like needs to be removed, and then we'll probably start seeing wall panels being removed next. As I reposition the drone on this south side, I'm actually flying right over the cyber pond. I'll give you a good look at the continuous flight auger pier drilling operation. It's now moved towards the center south of this whole clearing. And as we've talked about before, they drill the bores, they fill it with concrete, and then they insert those cylindrical rebar cages to make these piers. And based on the number of rebar cages that we have seen being constructed, they still have a lot more of these piers to be constructed and installed before we'll see footings being constructed. Here it looks like there's some sort of metal lattice work installed onto the steel structure, and we can also see inside the continued clearing out of this area. Less and less materials and equipment are present now, and again I think that may indicate we'll see some more construction on the inside. Here we see on that one kind of trailer another bridge crane rail, it appears, and of course that interior plastic temporary wall where the stamping machines are being finally assembled and tested, and some of them are actually in operation as well. Next to this crane, which is the crane used to remove wall panels, and on my previous video we saw them removing some equipment on this corner. As we look around that corner we can see that more of that stain work on the walls has been completed, and a lot of the machinery, this tank, some of the vaporizers, those kind of up and down vertical steel items, silver items on the left, and then some of the other equipment that is arranged here for eventual movement inside the factory. A lot of this is equipment that will be assembled inside the factory as well. Much of that over in stamping 2, which is that large open section. Just through the windows you can get with the light some of the stamping machines on this side that are in operation right now, and those are being used to make the Model Ys. We also see on the ground here, in addition to some other equipment, another trailer with another large beam, and I think that may be another bridge crane rail. So I'll bring the drone up, we'll cross over the power lines, and I'll give you a good view from the south end of Giga Texas today. This concrete intersection and also the medians are really starting to take shape, especially moving towards the north, more rebar for more concrete to be poured. I'm zooming back in here to show you that white stain on the walls. Also in that corner, some of the windows have been removed. Not really sure why, but we can also see more of the plastic on the windows moving to the north, and it just shows that they're continuing to progress with that white exterior stain. This is also another really good view, a zoom in of the activity on the east side of stamping and also the south part of body in white. As I pull away over this pond, I want to show you some of the big changes here where the multi-level parking garage is going to be built. Right in the middle of the screen, you can see that they're filling in this channel that kind of is an S shape. This was the old outfall channel, which allowed water to come out of the sedimentation basin next to the testing and calibration lot. This is all being removed because they want to have this area prepared for that multi-level garage. But also in the bottom of the screen, you can see this kind of V-type channel, and it also looks like they've sprayed some of the grass seed on it. This is the new outfall channel, and the water that will come out of that sedimentation basin will flow along this channel around the site and back into that pond. We can also see another large section of clearing where many of the trees have been removed. They're working on the grade kind of on the right-hand side of the screen right now. And again, you can see that they're putting in some of the gravel mix on the main site where the parking garage is going to be built. And of course, that green seeded outfall channel diversion now, and just how this overall section is continuing to change. I'll give you a good view of the east parking lot, also the new car staging and transportation lot, just to get an idea of what it looks like today. Also the east warehouse on wheels with all of these trailers. And there's also some very interesting deliveries that are underway here. And we'll come back and I'll show you some closer views of that later in the video. But right now I want to reposition and get you over to the battery cathode plant where there's a lot of very interesting developments today. There's multiple areas of some significant progress today. We'll start here on the south side of the crash testing facility. The small building that you see the roof being prepared, also the kind of the trench connecting the two buildings. This is where the equipment will be that will pull the cable that will go through that trench all the way through the larger facility, and it will pull the vehicles to the crash wall for crash testing. I want to take the opportunity while I'm here and also show you this very large multi-level platform with all of the equipment inside. That platform, it's all been assembled over the last couple of weeks. We are now actually seeing it moving very slowly, but moving nevertheless into the building right now. It's sitting on some rails. You can see that at the bottom, and they're using some hydraulic rams to push or pull this item into this building, and then of course with the tracks it allows it to slide in pretty easily. And I'll give you some closer views here, and if you watch closely you'll actually see it moving inside. So I had a viewer that speculated that Friday would be the day that it moved in, so that viewer, you are correct, so congratulations on that. I also wanted to show you this still image. I came back later just to show you that it did in fact go all the way inside. I wasn't able to film the entire thing on video, but I'm glad to be able to show you that still image when it was almost completely inside. We'll return back here to the crash testing facility, give you a different view where the workers are now in that rebar section. They're putting that large frame, that's the crash wall, and then the pit that the workers are in is where the cameras are going to be that will document the crash testing as it takes place. We can also see the rounded roof has extended most of the length of the walls right now, and then inside we can see some of those vehicle lifts. It looks like there's at least 3 on the right side, and that's probably for either post-crash testing inspection or preparation. Actually, if you look inside, there's 4 of them. Here we see by this small structure another kind of brown item. I'm not exactly sure what that is, but you can tell by the workers the size. If you happen to know, let me know in the video comments. As I reposition the drone to look to the north, another major change today, and that is the wade pit is being tested with water. And it looks like there's maybe about 1 meter of water that has been put into it. Most likely this is for initial testing. This is a good close-in view. You can see what that water looks like inside. And as we've talked before, and I've covered in depth on a previous video, this is a wade testing pit where vehicles drive through and they test to see how the vehicles handle the water. Are there any leaks? Are there any problems with the vehicle? Also, this particular wade pit is deep enough that it may be able to be used for flotation testing of some of the vehicles, most notably the Cybertruck. But here's the really good view of what it looks like with this water in it so far. With the workers, that gives you a pretty good idea of the scale. Also, the size of the kind of form marks in the concrete. You can tell by the workers how tall they are next to one of those, and you can use that as a scale just to get an idea of the depth of it. So anyway, this is how this east side looks, and a lot of the progress that is going on in a very quick time on this east side of the battery cathode plant. The battery cathode plant itself is getting one more of the wall panels installed. Can I see that yellow kind of item? And then also just to the northeast, we see the materials and those stainless steel tanks waiting for future installation. I'm going to take this opportunity to pan to the north and northeast to show you the activity that is going on here. A large section of trees now has been removed. We can see the grade work that is underway right now. They're actually reducing the height of the grade, and much of this dirt is being used in various other sites around Giga Texas. The equipment rental lot and how it looks today, it does look like it may be thinning out to some degree, and that's in the upper right-hand corner of the video. And then this is just another view of how this area continues to transform, and of course that large rectangular area with the grass and all the materials, that is permitted for the North Logistics Yard. And I keep watching to see when we'll start seeing some activity up there. And once we do, I will make sure that I will show you. But I'm going to pivot the drone back to look at the battery cathode plant again. We're kind of looking at the north end. A lot of activity with all of these vehicles. You can just imagine what it's like to be on the ground with all of that machinery moving at a pretty quick pace as well. On this north end, we see excavation work. It looks like maybe they're starting to fill in some of this pond next to the trees. Also, in this area is where it's permitted for a lift station, so I'm watching to see when that construction will continue, or at least begin. On the west side of the die shop, we can see how this berm has been widened and how it's significantly wider than when it began. Originally, it was just about the width of where the road is. So big changes, and continues to see that change in progress here on this side. As we get closer to the chiller plant, I'll give you some close-in views on the bottom with these kind of green pumped items and these kind of adapters on the pipes. It looks like they're doing some testing of the system, and also a lot of the work here with the pipes, pumps, the heat exchangers, and the tanks continues. And again, those two stainless steel tanks and the nitrogen vaporizer system. I'll bring the drone down lower here in the alleyway. You can see the concrete vaults. Underneath is where the conduit has been installed, and they've been installing electrical wires throughout this section. As I turn back here, we can see some more work near this kind of temporary foundation. It looks like trench work. There's a trench box, and looks like they're installing some more of the piping through this particular area. Most likely this is related to electrical conduit, just because of where I've seen the rest of it installed. I'll bring the drone here, down here at the TKS paint system, get an idea of what this looks like. It looks to me like it's clearing out, so that means more of those items are being moved inside for assembly, which is great. I mentioned I was going to show you these deliveries closer, and I'll bring the drone down here. I'll give you a good zoom in. These are 4 trucks with these very large containers. This is grob, and these are milling machines. And if you take a look here as I bring the drone back, there's these 4 trucks with these very large crates waiting to move inside. And I don't know if this is going into the die shop or if it's going into the second floor of the general assembly. I've seen these in both locations, but pretty interesting to see these deliveries. And as you can tell, the truck drivers are just waiting for the word to take them over to where they're going to be installed. So quite a bit of milling machines and other machines have been delivered and installed at Giga Texas over the last several weeks, and this is yet another shipment. Give you a good close-in view of the new car staging and transportation lot. Also, I'm trying to find any Cyber trucks because I know Gregor Truck would be very upset with me if I don't find a Cyber truck today, and sadly I did not see one, but you get a good view of a lot of the Model Ys and also the current end-of-line tents where the final inspections are done before the vehicles are prepared to be picked up by the trucks. As I move over this small water detention pond and across where the wind tunnel is located, also wanted to give you a closer view of an interesting thing that I keep getting asked about. Right next to this rainmaker device, you can see these Model Ys with a pretty thick coat of dirt. They've been here obviously for quite some time. I don't know why these are just sitting here. They may just be test items, or they may have failed inspection, or there may be some other reason. I don't know. But it is very interesting to see the amount of dirt that has been caked onto those Model Ys. As we fly over the superchargers, again, I'm looking to see if there's any Cybertrucks. I don't see any today. Sorry about that. But I will give you a good close-in view of the east side, where all of these new receiving doors, the green load levelers have been installed, and then the new doors where the plumbing and the concrete work is still underway. Here is where we see concrete work and some excavation. This is at the base of the perimeter grade beam. It's also where the electrical conduit goes into the building, and we've seen it all along this berm section being installed and then moving into this section. Looks like they may be preparing the final connections, or at least the final tie-in to the existing conduit. And of course, we can see where the rest of the conduit goes along this widened berm. This is also a really good view into those doors of the casting machine structure, and this is where inside a new furnace or a kiln is being installed. And I'll give you some closer views a little later in the video. Also, this north parking lot area where it's usually had a lot of the casting racks, almost all of them have now been removed, and the crews are continuing to install the wires and the electrical conduit. So as I pan the drone up towards the north, we're going to position to fly across Tesla Road, and we'll take a look at some of the activity on the south side of the electrical switchyard. As we fly over those two concrete vaults in this clearing area, that's where electrical conduit is underground, and then you can see actually some of it just sticking up out of that excavation. And this will eventually connect into this underground vault that continues to see some pretty fast progress. Now the crane is getting ready to pick up some scaffolding, and that'll be used for the crews as they are putting in the forms and the rebar for the last section of the roof of this underground vault. And you can also see where the middle section has been poured. That large rectangular opening will be where another one of those white trailers is installed, and then the conduit will come into the bottom inside of the vault and then come up through those large rectangular openings into these controlled trailers. As I bring the drone up, I'll give you just a good overall top-down view of this work and how it is progressing. And on the left, you can see some more of that conduit, that concrete vault, and how that is continuing to make progress right now. The wiring has not been installed yet. They're just doing the conduit for right now. Here we also see that temporary retaining wall, and about a third of it has already been removed next to that white control room. The rest of it will be removed once the concrete is completely poured and cured. As we fly up over the power lines, there's some significant changes that are going on here at the Megapack site, and I'm kind of looking forward to going through these with you. On this north end on the ground, you can see more of the trenching. This will be for conduit that'll extend all the way up under the drone over to the north side of the electrical switchyard. We also see here that more of the insulators and some of the circuit breakers have been installed. Those V-top circuit breakers have now been installed on that platform. And then on the large transformer, we can see more of the insulators have been installed now, and some of the cooling units, kind of the, radiators on the left-hand side of it. And then here, what we see being picked up by the crane is the oil tank that will be used to cool the transformer as it is in operation. And as we see the cut here, we'll see the tank itself being mounted onto those two arms, and you can see the crews right now applying attaching the bolts to finish that installation of that cooling tank. We also see those smaller square gray circuit breakers have been installed and wiring now, And it looks like it's hard to tell, but just past the big transformer, the other two are installed. So all 6 of those are installed as well. As we look at the Megapack site itself, the wiring continues to connect the Megapacks, the transformers, and that north electrical section as well. And then here is a major milestone. You can see the crews are installing the fence posts, and this trench is going to be where the concrete's poured to support the fences, and on the south end as well. And this is actually a very big milestone because they can't do any of the final testing or the commissioning of the Megapack until the perimeter fence is installed. The fact that we see this happening now is a really, really great sign. So this, coupled with what we see on the north with that transformer, that cooling oil tank, the connections, the insulators, the circuit breakers, and again, this fence, this really indicates that we're getting close to that point where the Megapack will be in a position so they can start testing. A few more steps that need to happen. They need to fill that perimeter area with gravel, but that'll happen pretty soon. As we cross over Tesla Road, we are looking at this parking lot again where the racks used to be. They've all been cleared out, and then here the crews with all these very large wires being installed through the conduit, coming over to these vaults and then around this apron and widened berm all the way to that section where I showed you that they were doing that excavation next to the perimeter grade beam of the building. Now, something I want to show you, I'm going to do an inset photo. If you look through the windows, you can see that the Newtek Bickley it's a company that's installing the large furnace and kiln, and this is very unique. We'll try to get better images of that inside, but I believe it's related to the 9,000-ton Gigapress, but it's really hard to tell for sure. We can see that the Everest crates, most of them have now been moved, which is very interesting as well. And of course, more of the castings and the rack mounts here on the northeast corner. So a lot of activity going on in and around the casting machine structure as well. As we fly across the north end of the building, there's one place that I want to kind of bring the drone down and show you some of the activity. All of these steel items on the ground, again, this is being used inside the ground floor of this section of the building, which is where 4680s are produced, because they're doing some additional construction and rework inside. Well, I noticed these white items, they look like trusses, and at first I was thinking they may be for a roof, but as I look at them now, it looks like they are probably just sort of, I don't know, large platform items that will be installed inside this section as well. So I wish I could show you more, but there is a lot of activity going on here in the northwest corner on that ground floor of where the 4680s are produced. So there you have it, a pretty wide-ranging site and drone flight today. We covered from the far southwest to the far northeast, and you can tell that there is just no slowing of the activity. Thank you very much for watching. I do hope you appreciate it, and I hope you have a great weekend. Take care.